Sit back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. I'm your host, Jessica Foster, and we are excited to welcome author Emily Carpenter here today. She's joining us from Georgia, and we are talking all about her Southern Gothic novel, A Spell for Saints and Sinners. Hi, Emily.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great, doing great. I have to tell you, I've never read a Southern Gothic novel before yours, but now I'm hooked.
Oh, I love it. I'm so glad I could introduce you to the genre.
Let's talk a little bit about your latest work. Give us a brief synopsis for those who haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Absolutely. A Spell for Saints and Sinners is about a young sidewalk psychic in Savannah. Her name is Ingrid, and she is really struggling financially to kind of keep her business going, to keep the repairs on her townhouse that her grandmother has left to her. And she ends up doing a reading for a young woman who is the daughter of the wealthiest family in Savannah. So Ingrid is very quickly drawn into this family's life, their world of power and privilege. And soon she realizes that she may be in so deep that she can only extricate herself with some dangerous magic.
And so, what brought you into this genre? Because this is not what you started with. When you started writing, you were writing rom coms, right?
Well, my first novel was what I called and what used to be called chick lit. That was the first book that I wrote, the first manuscript, I should say. That manuscript was never published. And so when I decided to try this book writing thing one more time, I thought long and hard about the books that I'd like to read, even from my childhood on, and like even the TV and the movies that I enjoyed. And I realized that was dark stuff. That was mystery and anything set in the South and anything that kind of had a hint of buried secrets and ghosts. And so I started writing in that. And then I think a couple of books in, I had an author friend say, "Oh, that's Southern Gothic that you're writing."
And anything set in the South, I love because I grew up in Georgia. And of course, I'm in the Florida panhandle now. You grew up in Alabama.
Yes. Yes. I mean, actually, by now, I have lived more years in Georgia than I did in Alabama, because I left when I was 21. And I'm a bit older now. But what I'll say is that I still somewhat feel like a guest in Georgia. I guess that's something about where you're from and your home and your roots and your family. All Alabama.
I think so. I think so. You're always rooted to where you spent your childhood, I think.
I think so. Yeah. And it's really those stories of your childhood that they're in there. They linger, you know, and you kind of want to work them out and figure out what they're all about.
And A Spell for Saints and Sinners, you placed this one in Savannah.
Yeah, I will say Savannah is like the heightened in fact, I heard somebody say once recently when I was there, Charleston is the prom, Savannah is the after party, and New Orleans is the after party.
Yes.
So Savannah has just enough like grittiness and rough around the edges aspects to it that I felt like it was the perfect setting for just a very atmospheric story. And, I have everything that you would want to see in a Savannah based story. I've got the old, beautiful houses, the squares. I've got ghost tours and, the moss dripping down from the oak trees. So yeah, it's a place that I love and I've visited a lot. And I just thought it fit with this slightly witchy magic story that I had come up with.
Do you ever find it hard to write about some of these themes? Like, do you ever scare yourself a little bit?
I mean, I really don't, honestly. I that's always my goal is to kind of spook myself a little bit. Because man, the bar is high with me. I will read horror books and just kind of shrug and be like, "Oh, that's not scary." Meanwhile, my husband is like everything scares him. So I know everybody kind of has a different tolerance level for that, but I for me, it's all about, atmosphere and, just creating that kind of creeping feeling of dread instead of going full into any sort of gore.
Right. Yeah, I understand that atmospheric writing, and I think that that really comes across. It's funny that you talked about your husband not having a high tolerance for being scared.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
husband is the same way. We have this story and we laugh about it all the time. We had a family vacation up in the mountains, and my dad was bragging because he was able to rent this home and it was really cheap. He was like, I can't believe this deal that I got on this vacation rental. And we get there and it's an old English Tudor style, and just some weird things were happening the whole time we were there. And I was like, "This is why this house is so
Yeah.
cheap." And I was handling it okay. My grandmother was handling it fine. My husband could not be left alone in a room. He was terrified of this house. And so we still laugh to this day about that.
I love it. You have to have one person in the relationship that's gonna be the ghostbuster.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. What do you hope that readers get out of A Spell for Saints and Sinners?
Um, for me, it's really twofold. I want to write a cracking good suspense novel that has you just turning the pages. You can't wait to see what happens next. But then also, I really want the story to be about something. And Saints and Sinners for me was really kind of examining power dynamics of like the power of wealth and money and privilege versus the power of a more spiritual power and the power of being connected to the universe and just kind of seeing those embodied in two types of characters and seeing that like all that play out in a really fun, messy, but hopefully meaningful way.
And what type of research did you have to do for this particular novel?
Oh, I mean, I started from scratch because actually practicing witchcraft, being either into paganism or Wicca or being a psychic was very out of my realm. And so kind of my gateway book was this incredible memoir by Diana Helmuth called The Witching Year. And it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's really just a observant, kind of tender, funny memoir about a young woman who spends a year investigating witchcraft and like really learning a practice and trying to practice it. And so that was kind of my initial introduction to it. And then I did some other research and I went to a psychic in Savannah and had a reading. So that was fun.
And I'm going to tell you, Emily, I would be so scared to go get a reading. I just,
Yeah, I was. I was.
Yeah.
I was nervous. It was the first psychic reading I had ever had, because I was raised in a very traditional way that this was not something you played with, and um, so I've evolved from that and come to some different sort of understandings about how our intuition works. But I tell you, the guy that I went to see, he was very understanding of where I was coming from and was like, look, you either take this or you don't. Take what you want, leave the rest behind. And so I felt very empowered to sort of, I felt like I had my own boundaries around, but it was accurate in many ways.
Really?
Yeah, it was. It was.
See, I would be afraid. I would have my mom in my ear. My mom would be like, "Don't mess with that now, Jessica."
Yes, exactly, exactly. Well, like, I've still never played with a Ouija board.
No.
So, like, that was a big no-no. I found it really interesting to kind of approach this different, practice or religion or craft, in and withhold judgment and to just say, like, what is this person's life like? Like, how does she approach life? What has she learned from her grandmother? How does she interact with other people? She has some neighbors who are more religious, and she has this young man that she kind of falls in love with who is also kind of pursuing a religious. So there's a lot of I really tried to approach it in a respectful, non-judgmental way and just represent her as just a real everyday person struggling with the same things we all struggle with. So,
Well, and I think that is the beautiful thing about books and literature is that it allows us to read things that maybe we're not familiar with, or maybe you don't even agree with, or it's something that you would ever do, but you can read it to get a better understanding of other people and how they see things.
yeah. And for me too, as I was doing the research and writing, I realized, no matter how we approach our lives, we're all seeking to get understanding. We're all wanting our lives to be easier, be better. We're wanting our friends and family to be healthy and successful. And, some of us choose to do that through prayer, and some choose to do it through ritual. And the similarities really revealed themselves to me, and I think the place where I feel like we have the most in common is that we're never quite sure what is effective, what is working. Is that because, did this thing happen because I prayed for it and, a miracle happened? Or was this just fate and, it just worked out that way? So for me, this book was kind of an exploration of the other side, the other side of the veil, and how we never quite know what's going on over there.
And in comparison to other books that you've written, was this one more difficult to write or was it easier to write?
No, actually, it felt, I mean, there were difficult elements to it, like, and difficult scenes, but no, it felt, I think the hardest part of this book for me was that my main character, Ingrid, was young and, very vulnerable. I felt almost protective of her because she grew up kind of as an outsider. She was kind of a loner. She was kind of bullied in school, and she was abandoned by her mother, raised by her grandmother. And so it kind of made her kind of an oddball character. And I feel like so that she had these incredible um, psychic tools. Like she has this ability to read palms and to really be connected to what's going on in the universe. But on the other hand, like in everyday life, she didn't have the greatest tools. And so she didn't always judge people rightly. And she didn't always protect herself. So I felt very protective of her and some of the obviously unwise decisions she makes in the book, or sometimes she doesn't see red flags that somebody older, more experienced would see. And I just would be like, oh, Ingrid, no, baby. But I didn't want to judge her. I still wanted, I wanted the reader to be on her side and to be with her. But yeah, there is a little part of you, I think, that you're writing a character like that and you so want them to find love and family and succeed. And yeah, it's tough for her.
I love that you get so invested in your characters, though. I think that's what makes a great writer when they're invested in characters and setting.
Yeah, I agree. I love setting. I always start with a really compelling setting because man, I mean, the minute I go to Savannah, I'm in a different world.
Right.
Like I'm in a world where there are ghosts and history and it's a really haunted city. Whether you really believe in like literal ghosts or not, it's so full of atmosphere. So yeah, to me that sets the scene.
The history is just so rich there.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's really, the only place I might be corrected in this, but like I mean, definitely one of the original colonies, a really old city. And it's so unique, I think, in the whole state.
And the food is delicious there.
Oh, the food is great.
Talking
Yeah.
about it makes me want to go back and visit again.
Yeah, I tell you, so this family, the Loefflers, wealthy family, they live in a real house called the Noble Hardy House. And I don't know, it's changed hands a few times, but I know several years ago when I went to Savannah, it was owned by Raskin's Antiques, and I think it's Alex Raskin had his store in the garden level. So you walked in the garden level and saw this, clutter of amazing antiques. And he would invite you to go upstairs if he liked you, apparently. And he one day when I visited, he said, "Go on upstairs and look around." And I go up into this huge, huge house, and it is packed to the gills with beautiful old furniture. And it's like 3 or 4 levels. And I was the only one in there. And I mean, it's like original wallpaper, woodwork, chandeliers, you know, dusky. The only light is coming in through the windows. And I got to the top level and I was like, "Oh, I got to get out of here." Like I'm the only one up here and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the spirits. I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling. So yeah, it was fun to put the Loefflers in that house.
Oh, I love that setting. Like you took me there just then and I was like, "Uh-oh. Uh-oh."
I mean, it was, and like room after room with these soaring ceilings, ceiling to floor windows that are just stunning. Yeah, unbelievable.
Let's talk a little bit about your path to becoming a published author because it kind of had some ups and downs.
Oh yeah. Um, it's it was I always loved reading. always loved to write. But when I finally, like I said, I wrote that first manuscript, could not find an agent to save my life. Then I decided to write a second one. And that's when I finally got my first agent. Um, and after that, I ended up publishing 5 books with my first publisher. And then I had a period where I was without a publisher, without an agent. This was like during the pandemic time. And yeah, I was really kind of floundering and didn't know if, this was it for my writing career. And then I ended up signing with another agent, wrote another book, and then got another deal. And so that was like there was like a 4.5 year gap in between those first 5 books and then these next. Um, I've sold 3. So I'll have one more coming out next year. But yeah, it's real. Publishing it feels like it changes every 30 minutes. Like what editors are looking for, how books are promoted. The whole world of book talk has kind of risen and now it's not as much a thing. It's really interesting to kind of watch this thing in fast motion. So who knows where I'll be next year?
Well, it's constantly evolving. You have to stay on top of things, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And the whole thing of like promotion is I think this continuing mystery because we don't have as many like legacy printed newspapers and magazines and there's not like listen, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s and it was like, there were these set places where people would hear about books and those places just don't exist anymore. And but now we have like this really cool, we have social media, we have Substack, we have podcasts and news shows and I think the bottom line is people still love to read and people still word of mouth is still a thing. You're going to tell your friend if you read a great book, you're going to tell somebody. And so that's kind of the constant for me is just trusting that writing a good book will find the readers.
Right. And as a journalist, we're constantly having to evaluate how do we reach our audience
Yeah.
because they're on so many different platforms. But being informed and knowing what's going on in your community and the world, that will never not be important. It will always be important.
So, in fact, I feel like it's the most important. I feel like it all starts with the local.
Right. So just finding your audience, keeping your audience, it's something that we constantly talk about in our newsroom because we want people to be informed. It's the cornerstone of our democracy is having a free press. So
yes, exactly. Exactly. And I thank you for your service.
oh well, thank you for saying that. That is so kind. And
it's important.
And I love the creativity that you are bringing into the world because I think that is so important. And especially with AI and all of that, I'm I don't want us to get away from the creative arts, and writing is a creative art.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've been on a roller coaster ride watching these developments with AI. But I will say I feel hopeful and I feel optimistic that art in all of its forms, storytelling is always going to come from a human source. And it's always going to be best expressed from a human source. And so I'm not saying, AI books are out there. They're clearly out there. Um, but I think that there's always going to be the reader, the film watcher that's going to want something that is maybe shaggy, maybe a little raw, maybe, not so processed, but is going to be a story that came from the heart of a real human.
Beautifully said. I I agree with you 100%. I had a friend not too long ago tell me that he feels like with AI all around us, we're going to see a renaissance with the art stuff. People are going to be more motivated to want to create original works.
I love that, and I've actually had that thought too. The art may not continue to make the amount of money that it used to, but it's going to be so much more valuable.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
What other projects are you currently working on? Is there anything really exciting in the works?
Oh, I'm excited about the book that I have coming out next year, which I'm currently in the process of editing. It's called Swamp Music, and it is actually a retelling of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which is one of my all-time favorite books, and, but it's set in Northwest Alabama, up in Muscle Shoals, which is like, the Americana roots music scene up there. So, yeah, it's about a young, woman who is a singer-songwriter, banjo player, and, yeah, I am very excited about that. I'm also working on a novella. So yeah, I've got a few irons in the fire, as they say.
Oh, I love that. And when I talk to authors, it's always amazing because they will be promoting one book while the other one is in the process of edits or something like that. And
Yes.
it's amazing because it's kind of like you have to shift your brain a little bit.
Yes, that is a big challenge for me because I love to just like obsess and bury myself in the world of one book at a time and then move on. But if you're kind of on a one book a year or you're doing some side projects, you really do have to learn how to say, all right, put that aside. We're going to compartmentalize and think about something else. But sometimes that's handy because projects don't always go as you want them to go. So you can just leave them to let them kind of simmer and, simmer on the stove and turn to something else.
And you enjoy talking with book clubs and readers.
I do. I do. There again, it's this human connection. As much as I realize the benefits of social media and the reach that it has and that it can have, I mean, I love to walk into somebody's living room and there be like 10, 15, 20 people, usually women, and they've all read the book and they want to talk about it and they want to talk about the characters and the characters are real to them, and I can see that they've had an experience with my book, and it's really gratifying and it's really fun, and it's just fun, to hear the questions they ask, and um what I remember and what I don't remember about what I've written.
Yeah. Yeah, it's validating that the work that you do matters.
Yes. Yes. And that you can see that, I've had people say, "Oh my gosh, I read your book in just like a day," or "I stayed up all night and finished your book." And I will say the first time somebody said that to me, I was like, "Oh, like I worked for a year and a half on that book, and they read it in a day and a half." And but now I know that is the best compliment I can get from anybody that they did not put that book down. They were turning the pages and they couldn't get to the end fast enough.
Well, Emily, thank you for spending time with us today. And A Spell for Saints and Sinners is out now. And if you have never read a Southern Gothic novel, even if you have, you are in for a treat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.